I also wanted to thank Sister Scott for inviting me once again to be a part of this program. And I think Pastor Maynard should thank her in advance because you got at least 3 sermons out of her talk. I know with mine, I had a really hard time narrowing down what I thought I should say about this because it's got a lot to say. We're going to start in the book of Matthew, which is where we're going to learn about the vine dresser. And it's Matthew chapter 13, it's verses 1 through 9 is what I was given. I'm going to actually read it before we get started, and I'm going to read from the New Living Translation. Later that same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake, and a large crowd soon gathered around him, so he got into a boat, and there he sat and taught as the people stood on the shore. He told many stories in the form of parables, such as this one. Listen, a farmer went out to plant some seeds, and as he scattered them across the field, some seeds fell on the footpath, and birds came to eat them. And others fell on a shallow soil with underlying rock, and these seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow. But the plants soon wilted under the hot sun since they did not have deep roots. They died. Other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants. And still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop that was 30, 60, 7, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. So in this portion of the Bible, he's actually giving a lot of different parables. And this particular parable is talking about, we're going to talk about the vine dresser, but one of the biggest lessons I got out of this was the idea of bloom where you're planted.
All right.
And so one of the things that I wanted to kind of tackle here is, first I think we need to know what a vine dresser is, because that's not something we hear in our kind of colloquial word language today. But what a vine dresser is it's somebody who is designated in a vineyard where you grow grapes. It is the person who is charged with taking care of of those plants. And the thing with that sounds like any kind of, farmhand or whatever we think about who takes care of crops. But the difference here is that grapes are a very special kind of crop.
Right.
They aren't the kind, they're even different than the seeds that we're learning about in this particular parable. In this parable, they're talking about things that can actually just be thrown out there and then they get, they grow themselves. Grapes don't do that.
Right.
Grapes actually have to be tended to, and they have to be, I don't know if you guys are going to Sunday school, but you should at 9:45 every Sunday morning. And if you are going to Sunday school, this last month and a half or so, every lesson has been about detail. It's been about really fitting into, they're talking about how to sacrifice things, but it's giving you very specific things on what to do. And that has really struck a chord with me, the detail that God's giving. He's not just saying, go do this. He's telling you exactly how to do it. And with grapes, it's the same kind of thing. They don't just get thrown out there and planted. They have to, there's a certain way you have to plant them. You can't just plant them from a seed. They got to be planted from a cut-off vine. They've got to be soaked. They've got to, and I pulled up how to grow grapes this morning just to see what does that look like. And it's like more than 90 different things to do just to plant them. Okay, and so once they're planted, that's not where in a lot of crops what you do is you plant them, and then they do their thing, they flower, they produce whatever crop you're trying to produce, you harvest that crop, and then you dig it all up and you start again the next time. Grapes don't do that. What grapes do is they actually have to end up in a relationship with their vine dresser, because the vine dresser is going to have to maintain this crop. So those vineyards that you hear about in Napa Valley and over in Italy that are 50, 60, 100, 200 years old, it's because families have had those same grapes are the grapes that have always been there. They last for decades and decades. One vine will produce years and years and years of grapes. And so the vine dresser doesn't just get rid of them when they're done. He has to watch them all year long. And actually about 75% of the year that he's watching them, they lay dormant. And can you show that picture? Yeah. So this is what we think of when we see grapes, right? This beautiful, they're lush, it's green, there's grapes blooming off of it. That's what we think of. But that's only about 25% of the year. The rest of the time, what the vine dresser is tending is this next picture, which are kind of just dried up, ugly looking plants. Which to the naked eye, if you don't know anything about grapes, you would maybe pull that up, right?
Yeah.
So when you're helping my mother, or what I thought was helping my mother, she had this Mexican heather that she was so proud of, and she planted it in the front of our house, and it was beautiful, had these purple flowers, and then, you know, I was home, or what, I don't know how I ended up home alone, and but it looked dead. And so I thought, I'm going to help Mom out. I'm going to clean out this flower bed for her. I thought I was really helping her, and I ripped up all her plants and threw them away. And she came home and was just like, what happened to my plants? And I was like, well, I got rid of them. They died. And she said, they were dormant. they die, and they don't die. They just don't. They lose they're just twigs in the winter. That's what grapes do. Grapes look like that. They die and they look dead, but they're not dead. And actually, this part right here where they look dead is the most important part for the vine dresser. Because if the vine dresser doesn't take care of them now, they'll never produce fruit later. And so he has to take care of them even when they look dead. Kind of like God has to do with us, right? God has to deal with us even when we look dead. We seem like we're dead. We're playing dead. We're not doing anything in church. We're not helping anybody. We're not moving along. We're not doing anything we're supposed to be doing. So we look dead. And thank God, God knows better. And he's not like me and comes by and pulls you up like that, right? Because we look dead, but we're just getting ready to be fruitful, right? And so the other part of this is that, so when you plant grapes, right, and they get into the soil, they tell you when you're caring for them, in the first couple of years, the vine should not produce fruit. The vine they do not want it to produce fruit because it needs to mature. For a couple of years, can you imagine planting a garden this summer and you got to wait a couple years to get those tomatoes? None of us would do that, right? But that's what grapes are about. They're about a commitment, right? The vine dresser has to make a commitment to that plant and know that, you know what, the first couple of years are going to be rough for this plant. They're not going to do anything pretty. They're going to look like that, right? And so but it's really important at this part that the vine dresser makes sure that it doesn't want it to get fruit. And if it does get the fruit, then it has to the vine dresser has to prune, right? It has to go through there and he has to prune it off. And then eventually, once they are kind of big enough and they're strong enough to produce some fruit, the vine dresser can let that happen, but then they're still going to prune. So something that can look beautiful and is making all of this fruit, they'll still cut it back. Because the vine dresser knows that if I cut it back now, what will come will be even more sweet. It will produce even bigger fruit. It will do a better job if I take some of this away right now. And so just like with these grapes, this is what God's doing for us, right? Sometimes we seem to be doing pretty good. We look beautiful, right? We are active at church. We are having a ministry. We are bringing people in. And then all of a sudden it just feels like something cut off. Something like we feel disconnected. We feel like God's left us. He doesn't hear my prayers. And it's because he's letting you grow. He's pruning you. He's taking off some of that success because he knows that you need to get rid of that so you can be more successful in nature. And we have to go through that. Another part that a vine dresser has to do is they have to do some pest management, right? They have to watch out for the things that can take it out. So like the seeds in our chapter, you know, or in our verses they were talking about the ones that get stifled out when they fall among the thorns, right? The thing is we are going to fall among some pests, right? We are going to be. We're in our own vineyard. We're in God's vineyard, right? But that doesn't mean that other things can't get in there. Because God lets everything in there, right? And he's trying to work with everybody. But some of these other plants are not going to be nice, right? Some of these things, there may be some bugs. There may be some aphids. There may be some whatever. There's going to be some stuff that messes with you. And that will start to stunt your growth, right? And so even when maybe he's doing the pruning, but sometimes you've done it to yourself because you've allowed some of those negative things to kind of take over. And sometimes it's just the negative thoughts, right? Because in ministry or in the church, you can get some negative thoughts. And it can come from the very people around you who are also being taken care of by the vine dresser. Some of these same other people might kind of mess with you. And they might say, you know what, nobody did your Bible study. Nobody did your, nobody came to your event. Nobody did, and then it does affect you. And even if you don't want it to, the strongest Christian, Pastor Maynard is one of the strongest people I know, but I know that even he gets discouraged when people are not doing what he thinks that, you know, I'm working really hard to make this happen, but nobody else is wanting to do it. And so he's having to have some pest management done. God's having to come to him and talk to him about, you know, don't worry about that. Don't, you know, we need to listen there instead of to our own heads sometime. One of the other pieces is called irrigation, right? That's the water. That's what's feeding it, right? And we see that in the scripture as well. It talks about the fact that, you know, for a plant or for something, even the ones that were just scattered, that weren't really found root, they still tried to grow, right? And that's the thing. There's a lot of things in our life that we kind of throw seed out, right, to try to do some different things, and they might take off. You might get a little bit of, you know, you might meet somebody and have a little relationship fling with them, but then it doesn't last because there's no real root to it, right? It's the stuff that we let take root, right, that really flourishes in our life. But even the things, everything has to have irrigation. It needs water. It needs food. We need to, we have to feed this, right? The vine dresser has to feed us in some way to keep us growing. That's why we come to Sunday school. That's why we do Bible study. That's why we need to be doing our own private Bible study at home. If you're not coming to Sunday school, hopefully you're having Sunday school at least at your house then. You know, you need to take some time and actually read some stuff that he's trying to get you to read, or talk, you know, whatever. There's so many opportunities during the week. I know that I come across so many things where something's speaking to me out of a podcast or out of some article that I read that has nothing to do with my church life, but it makes me think about, hey, it makes me think about something in Bible study or in Sunday school. And because he uses those opportunities to feed us, right? He doesn't have to just talk to us through this. He talks to us through many different outlets. We just have to be open and ready to receive it. The final thing that the vine dresser would do would be the harvest, right? Which is where you have bore fruit, you have done what you're supposed to do, and you are flowering and you are creating, and then he lets you harvest that, and you do get to harvest that in those times where you actually do get to the good part of your ministry, right? Where you actually get to see something actually come to a fruit to bear, right? Where you have really worked for something and then you get to see it happen. I mean, we get those kind of joys in certain things, like I know I do that all the time with my kids. A lot of times my kids are right there on that last moment, that last nerve that I've got. But a lot of times, more than that, I get the opportunity to see them do something and I go, that's why we did. That's why we go through all those nerve-wracking times, because they made that really good choice. I got to see them do something really kind for someone else, and nobody told them to do it. That is, I get to bear that fruit, right? That they actually, okay, they're getting it. They're getting the lessons that we're putting out there. God gets to do that through us as well, right? He gets to do that where he gets to kind of harvest some of the fruit when he sees us do something good, do something right, the way that he wants us to be doing. But all of it is it's a cycle, right? Because even once those vines have been harvested and the fruits are gone and done, it just starts all over again with grapes, right? Because you don't pull them back up; they go back to looking like this, right? And then you get to start all over again. And that's what God's doing with us all the time. We just have to remember that sometimes we got to look like that. That it's not going to always be beautiful, lush, green foliage around us. Sometimes it's going to be thorny and sticky, and it's not going to look good, and it's not really where we want to be, but it's where we need to be to get where he wants us to be. Right? And the final thing that I had, the last image I wanted to share was the bloom where you're planted, because I really have, last year actually, I was writing a piece for my nonprofit that I work for, and I did a piece called Bloom Where You're Planted, because it was talking to people who basically, we get frustrated in our lives because sometimes where we thought we should be planted, where we thought we should be, is not where he put us. And the awesome thing about God is that he gives us choice, right? He gives us the option to. Sometimes you might get thrown into some thorns, right? And you're going to be in some situations that are not the ones that you want. And sometimes the situation isn't even thorny. sometimes, and I was writing this from the point of view of my job at the time, it was not where I wanted to be. It is not what I went to school for. It is not my passion. It is not where I want to be, but it does pay the bills, right? But the point is my dreams, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be planted and bloomed, those aren't right now. That's not for me right now. Right now, he's got me where he's got me because that's where he needs me. And so I have a choice in that moment. I have a choice. The vine dresser has given me a choice to either make the most of that situation, do what you can do in that situation to actually bloom, right? Because that's the thing. Things that in our scripture, it says that the seeds that fell on the shallow soil underlying the rock, it said they sprouted quickly, right? But soon they wilted under the hot sun and died. So they sprouted, but they didn't bloom. There's a difference. You can sprout somewhere, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you're alive, but you're not blooming, right? And I think a lot of us get into situations like that where we are somewhere that we're, okay, I'm sprouted, I'm surviving, but I'm not blooming, right? And the thing is God doesn't want us to just survive. He doesn't put us on this planet to just survive. If that's what you're doing, if that's what the life that you're living in, you need to get with somebody in this church right now, today, and talk to us so we can help you figure that out. Because you should not just be surviving. We should be blooming. Right? We should be on our way to be a fruitful harvest. We should not just be hanging out. If we stay in that dormant stage for too long, then we've messed up. Right? God never intends for us to stay dormant. He's not going to just keep us alive just to keep us alive. He's keeping us alive because there's something for you to do. There's something for you to, for somebody for you to touch. There's some life that you're supposed to help mold or do something with. But it's all about the attitude that we have about where we are. So maybe it's not where you dream of, right? I dream of living in the Caribbean and not having to work. That's where I dream of, right? But that is not where he planted me, right? That is not the reality he has, but I do know where he did plant me. There is work to do there. There are people that he wants me to touch there, and it's about my environment. So I can either sit around and he will, and it doesn't matter if it's where I want to be. The fact is I can bloom anywhere. That's the awesome thing, is that I can bloom anywhere. It doesn't have to be this perfect thing in my head because it's perfect where God put me. God doesn't make a mistake. So if he put me there, then it's where I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to bloom there. And that's all in my own attitude. It's in my choice. It is my choice to either bloom or stay dormant. And because he's willing to work with me either way. I mean, that's the awesome thing. He'll let me sit there and be dormant. There are many people who died today who just sat there. They just sat there and they lived their life, and it was a life, and they lived it, and that was it. But there's a lot of us who want more than that, and God wants more than that for us, and he's the vine dresser, and he has this relationship, just like in the vineyards, which I thought was so fascinating, is that these people have this relationship. They know each vine individually. They know this vine needs more water than that vine. This vine doesn't want as much sun. It doesn't flourish in the sun. It needs this. There's certain kinds of grapes that even do something totally different than all these other grapes. They're all different. And the vine dresser has to know each and every one of them and has a relationship with each and every one of them. It said that on a gardening website. Okay? That wasn't even somebody giving me some biblical breakdown. That was a gardening website that said every vine had to have its own relationship with the vine dresser. God did that, that was on purpose, guys. That's not just something like, oh, that just happened. No, because he already had it in the Bible as a parable. He wanted us to understand that that's what he is, that he is a vine dresser for us. We are his fruit. We are his vine. And we have to have a personal relationship. If you need more of this, you need to tell him. He knows, but you need to talk to him. You need to tell him so that once you say it, then it can come to pass. Then it can happen because you've recognized it, he's recognized it, and now y'all are on the same page. But if he's the only one doing whatever needs to be done, he's just going to let you live. But I want to do more than live. And I think we all want to do more than that. We want to bloom. We want to produce fruit. We want to make him proud. And so have that relationship. Tell your vine dresser what you need, what you want, what you desire, and then let him tell you what to do to get there.